Okay, everybody, welcome to Ending the Stigma, A Path to Recovery. Here tonight with Mel, the Science Gal, and Scott H. Silverman. Can't forget the H, right? Never forget the H.
Please don't.
He yells at me, Mel. He yells when we get off the air.
But there's a good reason for that, Fred. There's a guy in Japan who has the same name, and if you start sending stuff to him, he gets irritated. So there you go.
There's a Scott Silverman in Japan.
Yeah, he's a yeah. I don't know. We're friends on Facebook actually, and he just I don't know. I'm sure he's working there. It's hard to believe that he was born there, but there aren't many Silvermans in.
Is there a Jewish community in Japan?
They're everywhere, buddy. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
They were parachuted around the world to make sure that there'd be global representation at some point or another. I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Well, tonight we're gonna be on for about a half hour because we all have different things we have to get done. Mel being, how old are you, Mel? 25?
Yeah.
25 years old. She has to go to bed, at 9 o'clock.
Oh my God, definitely.
Because she can't stay up past 9. So
I also go to work at 5:30.
Oh, do you feel bad for her, Scott? How bad do you feel for her?
No, I actually wake up at that. Well, that's one of the multiple times that I wake up throughout the night. What am I highlighting? I think last night I went to bed at 8, woke up at 10:15, 12:15, 2:30, and then of course 4, then again at 5:30. So tonight I'm going to go to bed early tonight, try to get 6 hours in a row just for fun.
We do have the phone lines open. If anybody does want to call in, that would be great. It's 212. Let me put the ticker on. There it is. 888-261-2220. You could use *67 to remain anonymous. Technically, you'll be anonymous anyway because it's not going to be on video. So even though we probably won't get a lot of calls today or anything, but in the future, just so they know, when they call in, they're not going to be on screen. Their voice will be heard. That's it. It's not going to be video of them. So that keeps your anonymity. But Scott, you wanted to talk about, is falling off the wagon a term to use?
It's an old school term, but I'm going to talk about a couple things. First of all, I want to wish everybody, who's listening a happy Passover, because it is Passover this week. And for those of you that don't celebrate Passover, who might celebrate Easter, happy Easter to you that's coming up this week. And the other thing that's there's two things heavy on my mind. I mean, I'm sure most people are either watching or hearing about the trial that's going on right now with, when we mention names in Minneapolis. And it's kind of sad to watch if you're seeing it and all the different things that are going on. I'm glad that the court's got an open, transparent, platform that people can look at. But the thing that's really sitting heaviest on me, and part of the reason is the last week or so, I've gotten more phone calls from people as a crisis coach that are starting to come out now, as they're getting vaccinated, and they have just, they had an issue prior to COVID, which was well over a year ago. And now but moving out of and away from that, staying at home alone or being at home, they are really suffering from what was taking place prior to. Meaning, if they were having a glass or two of wine, the call I got the other day was 2 bottles of wine a night. They went from 2 glasses to 2 bottles in less than a year. And they're really struggling right now. The good news is they're using those 3 magic words, I need help, and we're able to move them quickly into treatment. But it's staggering, the calls that I've taken literally in just the last week, and I don't know what it is that's taking place, but I'm glad people are calling, and I'm doing everything I can to get them placed to a proper level of care and support. And I just hope that people keep calling and asking for help, because there is hope and there is help, and it's out there. So again, those are the things that are on my mind. Obviously, we're seeing a huge demand right now for services, which is great. And I hope that everybody who needs help will access and get it.
Yeah, so I agree. And it's got to be creating not only the people that are returning to use who were sober, but it's got to be creating new addictions for people. We got to be getting upticks in the alcoholism and stuff because people are home or they're bored. They use it as boredom. I'm sure people that quit smoking years ago have returned to smoking. It's just one of them things that's going to continue. Luckily, I haven't. I have not returned to smoking, thankfully, because I think once you do start smoking again, it bites you hard. It connects to you. And I got to imagine that's what heroin, alcohol, and all those things do to you too. So
Well,
Mel,
what's interesting, Fred, is people who actually, suffered through that change of not going just from smoking to smoking or not smoking. A lot of them are vaping now. But what's interesting that I'm hearing from some people is they've picked up, going and getting cannabis oil and THC in a liquid form or edibles and cooking them and preparing them themselves. So what they've done is they've added new substances to their path. And it's amazing how much substitution's gone on because the people that went from 2 glasses of wine to 2 bottles of wine are now having difficulty waking up in the morning. So some are now, they brought in Adderall, if you will, and they're taking, Xanax throughout the day, and then they're doing something to take, to go to sleep at night. So it is amazing. And then the complaint I heard was, and now I have insomnia. So all this different, commingling of drugs and alcohol, even if it's prescription drugs and alcohol, are causing things that are happening to people that are seeing. Then we haven't even talked about the family. Imagine how the family is watching their loved one deteriorate over a very short period of time. So,
So do you have anything this week, Miss Science Gal? Did you prepare anything?
No, I did not.
You don't need to. Don't worry. You're the smart one here. Well, Scott's pretty smart too. And
well, not as smart as Mel, and she gets to probably sleep all night, even though she gets up at 5:30.
And I'm not going to stigmatize myself. I'm going to say I'm smart also.
Well, I think it's good that you lie to the audience, Fred. It's important. There's no you make it up as you go anyway. Eating your seaweed. So the weather here, by the way, was 80 degrees here on the coast in San Diego today. How's your weather back there?
Right now it's raining. I don't know about where Mel is up north, but
it was 70 yesterday, and it's like 30 now.
Wow.
And it's supposed to snow tomorrow.
We close the city down at 30. They'll close the airport here, 30.
Well, the good thing, one of my favorite things starts tomorrow, which is baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. So we all actually live in, I know Mel's a Red Sox fan because I know her family. And I'm a Red Sox fan, obviously, if you can't tell from my background and everything. And you must be a San Diego Padre fan because you're in San Diego.
Yeah, they have a lot of forward momentum this year. It's pretty exciting. They're making some very optimistic forecasts. It's funny. My wife is a huge sports fan. She wanted to be a sports announcer when she went to college, and it's opening day is kind of a sad day because her dad's gone now. But that was something they did together because I didn't like the parking and the expensive food and the crowd, the lines and the noise. So she used to go with her dad. So I kind of fake it and pretend that. Baseball starting. So no, tomorrow's a big day. And I think isn't every
team plays tomorrow.
I mean, and they're physically in that stadium, right? In most states, they're opening it up to fans.
Except for one, the Toronto Blue Jays. Canada won't allow them to play. So they are playing in Florida.
Yeah.
But they're the only team.
That's exciting. Yeah, we're going to hear from the CDC probably in 2 weeks because everybody went to the ball games now. Because there's already a surge going on with COVID across the country.
It's very difficult. They're only opening like Yankee Stadium, which is the stadium I tend to go to the most because I could get there. I'm about 45 minutes driving.
Half the fans can go?
No, not even half. I think it's opening day tomorrow. I think is 12,000. I think. I know it was a very tough ticket to get, and they're spreading them out very far and everything. So, Fenway Park is 10,000 maybe, But you're right. The uptick is there. We see it in Connecticut. A lot of it's going down. And who knows? You just don't know. And it's not getting easier. I don't know if you saw a medical or a science lab in Philadelphia destroyed 15 million things of COVID vaccination for Johnson and Johnson.
Oh, I just saw that article.
I didn't. I saw a quick headline today silently. So what was the thinking? Was it on purpose or accidental? Or
I'm assuming it was accidental. I didn't read the article. I just saw the headline come across my screen, but I'm assuming that it was. But getting back to your thing of COVID-19 causing people to relapse,
yeah,
I did come across a few things like signs of a relapse. Yeah. I guess for others to see. And one of them is, the first one is poor eating or sleeping habits. And the second would be declining hygiene. The third would be talking to past friends who are still using. The fourth is constant lying. The fifth is bottling up your emotions. And the sixth is skipping or avoiding your virtual support meetings.
Yeah. I want to clarify something. When I talk about, when we say, because of COVID, I think what COVID has done is it's caused people to stay inside. They've been mandated to be inside. And I think it's the isolation, it's the being alone, the lack of connectivity, even listening to grandparents talk about having been able to hug their grandkids in over a year. I think all of that contributes to people's overall well-being. And a lot of people, if you don't know how to practice self-care, it's not just something you can go on YouTube. You can learn, get some tools, but I think the isolation and the separation and the socialization has really contributed to it. So it's a learning opportunity, because I think that a lot of lifestyles have changed because of what happened. And, and until this is gone and 100% controllable, a lot of people will be concerned about ever leaving the house until they know for sure they may never get sick. And I don't know if that's ever going to be an absolute. They say it could take years. And now they're talking about kids under 12. They're not even giving them vaccinations until they have the evidence to say it's safe. So, and how do you open up schools for, kindergartners and nursery if they're not going to get vaccinated, because they're going to be around teachers and teachers' aides who hopefully will get vaccinated. But, again, it's going to be a little while before we see whatever is defined as normalcy. We'll wait for Mel to come up with some new science about what normal is going to look like, because I don't want to take a swing at that, if you will.
So Mel, with your science background, I don't know if you know this at all, but what are the differences between the Moderna, the Johnson and Johnson, and the other one? Are there major differences, or are they the same thing? Just different?
Okay. So the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are using mRNA technology. So mRNA is messenger RNA. So this is a new technology that has never been FDA approved for a vaccine. That doesn't mean it's not safe. All you're doing is, for those vaccines, you are providing your cells with a piece of the virus's genetic information, and this genetic information cannot integrate into your genome, and it cannot infect you with the virus. But what you're doing is, in the first dose, you're giving a small amount of the genetic material to your cells. So your cells are seeing this thing for the first time, and they're going to make antibodies. And then when you get the second dose, you're going to get more of the genetic information, and your body will already have made antibodies. So it'll see this information, and it'll say, oh, I've seen this before. I know how to handle it now. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, I don't know exactly what technology, but I'm pretty sure it's a type of vaccine technology that's been previously approved in other vaccines, which is probably why it's less effective. So the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are, I think, 95% or higher effective at preventing severe COVID, and the Johnson & Johnson's in the 70%. And that has to do with the fact that the mRNA technology is just more advanced, and it does a better job. And also, just because you get the vaccine doesn't mean you can't get COVID. Those high percentages of efficacy of the vaccines is how effective it is at preventing severe COVID. So, like, if you get the vaccine and you can still get COVID, but you're not going to end up in the hospital taking up medical resources. So yeah, let's hope that's like.
So Mel, question. You said that when they give you the first dose, it enters the body. So what causes the reaction that some people get, and which I got? I felt like I had the flu and I slept the next day, and then obviously the arm is sore from whatever's going in your body from the needle, maybe. But what causes that?
It's literally your body having an immune response. It's a good sign. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I got this vaccine and now I have COVID because I have these symptoms. No, that's not what's happening. The point of a vaccine is to preemptively expose yourself to the virus's either genetic information or a specific protein, so that so the body is right now with the mRNA, it's like, oh crap, there's COVID. It's not really COVID, but I see this thing I don't recognize. This is how we need to deal with it. So your body's learning to deal with it. So the fact that you're sore or you're having flu-like symptoms, it's not because you're getting COVID or you have the flu from the vaccine. It's because your body is doing what it's supposed to do. So when you actually come into contact with COVID, your body can handle eliminating that virus from your body without a more severe reaction. So the first time you get something, it's usually worse than the second time because your body doesn't know what to do. But with vaccines in general, they're basically training your body to react if you see this thing in the future.
Now, will you have to get this next year? Is this a yearly thing? Is it going to?
I don't know. It possibly could be. So the reason the flu vaccine is a yearly vaccine is because the flu mutates so rapidly. The mutations are so random and there's so many different ones. That's another reason why the flu vaccine isn't always very effective. So when you're making the flu vaccine, scientists literally have to hypothesize what mutation is going to happen this year. And so they make vaccines based around 1, 2, 3, a couple of mutations, and that's the vaccine that's rolled out to the general public, or the vaccines. And sometimes those strains of flu don't pop up. It's something completely different that we didn't expect. So it seems that we've already seen 3 or 4 different strains of the coronavirus. It's mutating very fast already. So I would not be surprised if this becomes a annual or more commonly you need a new booster shot kind of deal. The reason we don't have that with smallpox is because it doesn't really mutate. It's pretty much the same. So once you're vaccinated for once, you don't need to be vaccinated again. But if it changes over time, you're going to need to be exposed to that new changes. Because likely if it's mutating, the mutations that stick around are going to allow the virus to be more effective at hijacking your body and replicating in your cells.
Yeah, I'm glad you are here to say these things rather than send them to me, because it would take me a half hour to butcher words. I still can't even. I'm still processing some of the words you said. That's the problem with me. I hear a word I've never heard before, and it sticks in my head and spins because it doesn't connect anywhere. So you're a science nerd.
So science nerd, question for you. How is it that something this new, that wherever it came from, animals or a lab or whatever, how is it the science world was able to find and create a vaccination so fast that appears to be at least 70-80% effective, which is significant? And then we see things, because the one I think about is cancer, that you can't go a day each week and not hear about it. And I don't know if it's still the number one killer, but it's right up there. How is it we're not able to generate the kind of momentum to deal with things like that, diabetes, and even addiction, other things that it's like the world went crazy and said, okay, we're going to fix this in a matter of a year. They came up with something even sooner.
So I'll answer the first part of that question first. So there are probably 3 main reasons why we were able to make this vaccine so fast. The first one is that the technology. So in like the most basic sense, what we're doing to create an mRNA vaccine is all we need to do is sequence the genome of the virus and figure out what sequence encodes for what protein and how that protein relates to the virus's ability to replicate or enter cells. So with these viruses, they're actually pretty simple viruses. I think they have only one single strand of genetic information, either one or two, and they only have a couple different proteins. So once you know the sequence, which, with next generation sequencing genomes is so easy, especially on these very small genomes. Then you just run some tests. You'd be like, hey, okay, so the spike protein is the most important protein for getting it into the cells. So, for example, I don't know if this is what they did, but you can synthesize a messenger RNA, which is mRNA, that encodes for that spike protein. And so that's the idea. So that's why it's faster. So if you're making other different ones like live attenuated or you're using inactivated ones, you either have to mutate the virus particles to be non-infectious, or you have to like synthesize those components from scratch. It's very easy to make mRNAs and genetic materials to deliver. So that's like one reason why. And actually, this technology has paved the way for vaccines. They should be more efficient in the future to make, just because we know how to make this kind of a vaccine now. It's been FDA approved. It's the first of its kind. And so now it's going to lead the way for others. The other two reasons I would say that it came out so fast is A, there was so much freaking money to make vaccines. When this was first going on and when the shutdown first happened in March, April, May, the NSF, NIH, they were throwing money at you to study this. With other diseases, like, yeah, you're getting money, but like every single government organization was funneling their money to fund this research. They were like, you're going to do something with COVID? Here, take $1 million, take a couple $1 million, take a couple $100,000. And then lastly, I would say that because it was so urgent, it put the world at a halt. We finally got to not deal with all that administrative bullshit red tape. That doesn't mean that the science there were no shortcuts in the science. All the appropriate clinical trials happened. We had phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials, and the FDA went through its normal processes. They now analyzed the data, they determined whether or not it was effective, and then they made their decision. That's why the AstraZeneca vaccine is still not approved. They came out and they applied for emergency use, and the FDA was like, wait, hold up. Your study's too small. You're not getting the best results. You need to do more things before we can approve it. So those three things, I think, are why it happened so fast. The administrative red tape bullshit got avoided. There was a lot of freaking money and the technology. So to answer your question about other diseases, so like cancer, perfect example. The reason there's no universal cure for cancer, and there will never be, PSA, there will never be a universal cure for cancer. Everybody's cancer is different. So cancer occurs cancer starts with like a set of number of mutations. But cancer cells, there's random mutations in every aspect of the cell's life. And they completely take over, and they completely change the environment of your organs, of your bodily systems. So they're very complicated, and everyone's cancer is unique. So if I had a brain tumor, my brain tumor will never be exactly like Fred's brain tumor if he had a brain tumor, but they just wouldn't be the same. So you can't just be like, oh, we're just going to give everybody this one treatment. The reason chemotherapy and radiation is like a universal treatment is because chemotherapy literally kills everything, including your healthy cells. So the best way forward is we need to figure a way to do personalized, individualized gene therapy medicines. And that's how we're going to eradicate cancer. And, that takes a lot of money, a lot of time and research. You really need to evaluate what's going on individual levels to determine the best treatment options. So I hope that answered the questions, and I didn't ramble too much.
No. I think it makes sense. I think, the simple explanation is, cancer is complicated. And I get that, but maybe one day, to your point, that if we got through the BS and we're able to throw a lot of money at it, and the synergy of the world says, let's get on it, maybe we'll come up with something that might help slow it down, diminish it, attack parts of it, and eliminate certain, modalities of it. Because, they say they say you live long enough, you will get almost everything one way or another. That's something you think about when you're your age and you're you're on your trajectory of growth, because you're like, most people, look, the people that I've seen that have been impacted by, overdoses, the kids, everyone believes it's not going to happen to them until one day they get something they didn't know what they're taking. And that seems to be a big part of it. And just staying informed to what you explained, are there things you can do differently? Yeah. Eat healthy, exercise, and, put different things in your body, and, all the other things that we have information out there, but it can get very confusing. So Fred, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to say, first of all, was this is what it's like talking to Mel at a barbecue. This is what I, and I just stare out in space because I have no idea what she's talking about half the time. And she's been doing this since she was like 12. And I appreciate it. I think I love seeing her speak like that, because you could clearly tell this is all in her head. These are just facts that she knows from her education. She's not reading this off of a piece of paper or something, and she has no idea what you and I are going to ask. So I think we found a little gem with Mel, the science gal. Just a small one. Just a little one. I'm not going to inflate her head too much, because I know her family history too much. And you inflate their heads, and all of a sudden they think they're kings.
Yeah, they come on for half an hour, and you get an invoice in 3 days, for $800.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I better get some of that money.
Yeah, there you go.
She wants it, but
you can have half of whatever he's given me. How about that?
Oh, good.
But I think
just wait until I have my PhD.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be it, I think, Scott, for the show. How's your book coming along, Scott?
That's a good question. I haven't heard from anybody, so I'm going to take no news as good news. My hope is to have pre-sale on Amazon by the 3rd week in April, and going into May to have hard copies that I can send out to folks that want to read about, the opioid epidemic. So I'm really excited about it, and I think it's going to give me an entree into some places right now that will help me push the envelope. But I have something coming up. I'll tell you about it next week, that I'm going to be doing an interview for an independent news channel talking about homelessness. And they've interviewed me in depth, and they want to make sure that I reveal what it is I think is the problem in communities, why we're not creating solutions around it, and why it continues to get worse. So I'm really looking forward to that interview, because whatever friends I have left, I'm sure I will eliminate with that candid, transparent conversation. So, and I'll be sure and share it with you guys when the time comes around. But end of the month, end of April. And oh, by the way, tomorrow's a special day, right, Fred?
What is it? April Fool's Day?
It's a perfect day. If you were born on that day, it would just be like, the icing and frosting on the cake. It would be amazing.
Maybe it's a good time to tell Mel that it's her parents' anniversary tomorrow.
I knew that.
You sure?
I knew that.
How could she not know that?
She doesn't pay attention to that.
She doesn't know. That's not real science. That's just data that's got to be put in some sort of data bank and put in the cloud so she can review it later. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Fred. Good seeing you, Mel.
Well, it was good having both of you here, and I think it was good conversation. We didn't really. Well, first of all, we could also mention that it's trans. Let me get this right. Today is Trans Day of Visibility, and that's a level of the stigma that gets placed on trans people. So let's stop judging them for their decisions and who they are, and everybody. Let's stop judging everybody for who they are or their choices. So that's part of what our show is about. So happy Trans Visibility Day. I didn't even know it existed till today. Now I know. So that's going to be it for ending the stigma path to recovery. I got to get back to eating my, what is it? Seaweed. My seaweed. Because I love seaweed.
Just lick it and put it on your cheeks and see if something happens to your smile.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. And go Red Sox. Go Red Sox. Okay. San Diego doesn't need a championship. They already got good weather. They don't need good baseball too. Okay, everybody. That's going to be it for the show. We will talk to you again next week. Goodbye.
Awesome. Take care. Be well. Be safe.